Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today's video we're going to talk getting started with Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and today we're going to take a look at the Maggotkin of Nurgle, and in particular the Munificent Wanderers subfaction of the army. In this video, we're going to talk about what exactly we get from being a Munificent Wanderers army for the Maggotkin of Nurgle. We'll then take a look at some units we can use to start our collection with before looking at some other options to expand upon down the line. Finally, we'll finish off the video with a little sample army list of 1,000 points for you to use as some inspiration for creating your first Warhammer Age of Sigmar army list. And with that all said, what do we get with this subfaction? The first thing is you can find these subfaction rules inside the Battle Tome. Inside Battle Tome, Maggotkin of Nurgle, you'll find all of these rules. Now, you'll also get the cool rule for the Munificent Wanderers, where if an enemy is within 3 inches of a Munificent Wanderer's Plaguebearer host that has 10 or more models at the end of the movement phase, it receives 2 disease points instead of 1 for being within 3 inches of a Maggotkin of Nurgle unit. This is pretty cool, so straight away it's giving us a unit to use in this subfaction, which is the Plaguebearer hosts. That's Plaguebearer units, they're just called hosts. And it's, giving us an idea of trying to generate lots of disease on enemy units. I think disease is an incredibly underrated mechanic. We really see a lot of damage done late in game. It is such a good mechanic for the army, and I think you'll see more output from your disease than you will think at first glance for your Maggotkin of Nurgle army. But where to get started? And so for this army, I think starting off with the Spoilpox Scrivener is a good option. Spoilpox Scrivener is one of the many Heralds of Nurgle that you have available to you. First of all, it's not the greatest in combat. It's distended more, 2 attacks, 3 3s, Ren 2, damage 2. Not shabby, but only 2 attacks. Really though, it's keep count, I'm watching you. Its ability, that is why you're taking it in your army. At the start of the combat phase, you can say this unit will call for a count. If you do so, you pick one friendly Plaguebearer host, hold within 14 inches of this unit, and pick one of the following counts to carry out. That effect of the count lasts until the end of that phase, and a unit cannot carry out more than 1 count per phase. So you can now either give +1 to the attacks of your Plaguebearer unit, you can improve their Ren by 1, or you can add 1 to their save rolls, all of which are really good benefits. In this, generally, I think, increasing the amount of attacks you're going to be putting out is a really good option. But if you're wanting those Plaguebearers to stick there, all of a sudden going to, a 5-up save and then a 5-up ward after that with 2 wounds for every Plaguebearer is a really solid way to keep a unit around. Even adding the rend if you're just needing that little bit of extra kicker to get rid of, a screen or something, or, a little chaff unit holding an objective, I think is a really solid shout. Now, speaking of Plaguebearers, they are the battle line unit we're going to be taking a look at in this subfaction more than anything. Like I said, 2 wounds and a 6-up save. Movement 4, so they are pretty slow. However, if you ever roll an unmodified battleshock test of a 1, you can return a slain model to the unit and no models flee in addition. Also, you've got the Cloud of Flyers ability on your Plaguebearers. Subtract 1 from hit rolls if they ever are shot by missile weapons, so long as the unit has 5 or more models. Plague Swords are their only weapon. They've got 1 attack, 4s, 3s, no rend, and damage 1. So you can see where the Spoilpox Scrivener really does increase their potential damage output, putting them up to 2 attacks each, or indeed, getting them 1 attack each with some rend. Looking at where to go next, I think the other Heralds are certainly a great place to look. The Sloppity Bilepiper is another one of them, and Marrotter in close combat, 4 attacks, 4s, 3s, Ren 1, and damage 2 is pretty nice, but its Jolly Gut Pipes are where you're going to be using it. At the start of the combat phase, you can choose to do one of the following tunes, and it affects units around that model. Now, you can choose to either add 1 to wound rolls for friendly Nurgle demons around it, all within 14 inch should be said by this. You can choose to do mortal wounds on a 6, which goes really well on your unmodified wound rolls, so you can get extra attacks, get disease, and then get mortal wounds because the disease happens on hits. This will happen on wounds, meaning you're not double stacking on the same roll because you can't have 2 effects trigger off the same number. So for instance, if you roll a 6, you can't have both extra attack coming out of that, and you can't have mortal wounds coming out of the same one. You have to pick and choose what you want to apply. Now, you can also choose to enemy models within 3 inches of Nurgle demon units that are whole within 14 inch cannot finish pile-in moves closer than they already are. So it pretty much stops, pile-ins happening to get more models into the combat, which is pretty cool. I really like this. I think he is a nice piece to add. Now, the last one of the Heralds of Nurgle that we have is the Poxbringer. The Poxbringer's big thing is when he attacks, he can allow a Plaguebearer unit nearby him to attack, but he's also a wizard as well. Cast 1, unbind 1, and he's got the Eruptive Infestation spell, which is just a nice little bit of mortal wounds. Looking into some other units, I really rate Nurglings. I think they're a really solid unit to bring to the table, able to, at the start of the game, deploy off the board and come on to terrain. They have a cool rule where if at the end of the battle shock phase, they heal all wounds done to them. So if you don't wipe them out, they just generally keep coming back. And 5 attacks, 5s and 5s, no rend damage 1, but they do generate disease from that. Now, lastly, we have the Great Unclean One. This is the big Papa Nurgle Daddy that you have for the army. He can hit like an absolute truck in particular builds, but he's really a nice big tanky buff piece for your army. 18 wounds, 4 up save, dual casting wizard, and he's got some really cool abilities. He's bloated with corruption. If he ever makes ward rolls of a 6, he does mortal wounds back to the enemy. He also has his reverberating summons if he's got the Doomsday Bell, where you can at the start of the hero phase, if he's on the battlefield, roll the dice. On a 1, nothing happens. On a 2, 3, you get an extra contagion point. And on a 6, you get an extra D3. He's a really nice, solid buff piece for your army that's just going to provide a ton of work and be an absolute anvil for the force. Now, here we have our sample army list. Obviously, in the Munificent Wanderers sub-faction, we've got Defends What's Ours. Enemy units, no enemy units within our territory. Be a fun one. Nurgle don't really do grand strategies all that great, not particularly in this build, which isn't very damage dealing, but we've got a Sloppity Pile Piper and a Spoilpox Scrivener in there as our heralds. You could easily, whichever way you want to do this, put the command trait and an artifact on either one of these, even split it amongst the two. It doesn't really matter at all. They're both exactly the same stat-wise to survive. So, command trait, we've got Pestilence Breath. This is a 7-inch attack. The model now gets in the shooting phase where it can do mortal wounds to a horde, which is pretty good because while your Plague Bearers may be able to inflict a lot of disease onto, say, single models and make those models die from disease, they're not really going to chew through a horde all that quick. So having something like Pestilence Breath is really nice. Now, the artifact, the Witherstave, is really cool as well. It triggers disease rolls on a 5 rather than a 6, which is really nice. I really rate the Witherstave as a cool artifact for your Maggotkin of Nurgle to have access to. Now, on top of this, we've got those 2 heralds there. So now we've got a battalion of 3 Expert Conqueror units here, which are going to be 2 units of 20 Plague Bearers. And then we're also going to have a unit of 10 Plague Bearers for a nice 50 Plague Bearers on the table. Now, they're all counting as 3 models on objectives, thanks to the Expert Conquerors. This is going to be an extremely hard army to put down. Even if those heroes get taken out, just putting down 50 Plague Bearers at 1,000 points is going to be a tough task. 110 wounds is well on the high side of wound count. 2 out of 2 reinforced units and no allies. 5 drops for the force. If you're looking for an army that's going to sit there and not move, this is the army for you. Also, if you've been playing with a Plague Bearer Heavy Force in the Munificent Wanderers before the Maggotkin of Nurgle, I'd love to hear how you've been going and what you would do down in the comments below. That's the end of the video, everyone. Thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, drop us a comment down below in the comment section and let us know what you enjoyed about the video and what you'd like to see more of on the channel. If you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our little community here we have at Sinful Gaming, you can do so on our Discord server, which is linked in the video's description. Also linked in the video's description is our Patreon and YouTube members where you can go to help support the channel and allow us to keep doing what we're doing. As a special thank you to our Patreons and YouTube members, we'd like to give them all a shout out. So thank you to our Patreons, Christian Weir, Soren, Greenskins Gaming, Kenny Lauer, Outer and Shot First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ant, Q Dynamic, Anthony B, JJ Austrian, Average Wargamer, Domir, Mark Harvey, James Cater, Derek, and Giappi390, and to our YouTube members, Green Roots Gaming, Kenton Young, Ronya, Lock Lorick, The Johnny84, David Ellsworth, Wolfric Nick, Broken Chef, Ariana Edwards, Revenar, Pink Nico Fire, Robin Mankiller, and Monty's Tabletop Terrain. And lastly, a special thanks to Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork you see on the channel. Thank you all for watching. Once again, stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the grey. Ciao for now, everyone.